involved too.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, it really is.
yes, I
Yeah,
know, right?
yeah.
But I would like to. I would like to ask. You had mentioned, I believe, when we started the topic on the bases, 7 of them in that area.
There's five that I've written about in North Carolina.
But there's,
There's bases all over the country. I have
yes.
just chosen to write about the ones where I can get, you know, right to where things are happening, um, rather than trying to be an expert on everything across the country where I would only be getting secondhand information.
When you started researching these and and presenting the information that you were gathering, did you feel led to do that also? Is this kind of like a way of
Well, that came a little bit differently at the time after I did the corporate routine for much of my life and moved to North Carolina. I began to manage a health food store so that I would have the time and energy to do some of my own projects. When you're working in corporations, you do not have the time or energy to do extra things.
true?
And it proved to be a very interesting place to work because uh, you in a health food story, it's amazing how conversations can get going that wouldn't happen in other places so readily. And there was this one couple, they knew about the website, and they would come in very shyly, maybe every couple months or so, and they would have conversations with me about UFOs and stuff they'd seen. And finally, one day I said, "Well, it sounds like you have a good story. Could I meet with you and interview you for the website?" And so I met with them at their camper trailer, and then found out that they had been checking me out to see if they could trust me. So they'd been in and out of that store checking me out without me knowing it. And the woman was the first one to tell me about the underground facility at Perry. And she had been raised in a family where her father, in fact, the whole family was under the threat of keeping their mouths shut because everything was high security in her father's job. And she's the one that first told me about Perry. And then it was confirmed later by another man who I did meet through the health food store, who also had high security clearance, and he confirmed what the woman had said.
It's just bizarre.
I didn't set out to write a book. So the underground military stuff came through, and I began to get all this information, and it wasn't anywhere else. So then I wrote the book. When I began to learn about the little people, and I started trying to find out if anybody else knew about the little people or the Cherokee little people, I couldn't find anything. And all of these eyewitnesses were elderly, and I thought, if I don't get their information down, it's going to be lost forever. So that was the motivation for that book. And then the Tangible Evidence of Jesus book was, as I said, directed in the middle of the night. So I didn't set out to be an author, but it happened.
Well, I'm glad it did because you've educated me over the years. And and I appreciate that. I appreciate all the work that you have put into doing this.
You're very kind. Thank you.
When we were talking about, I know I'm jumping on you, but one of the quotes about Fate magazine is the stories of the strange, and it's been in business since 1948, so people obviously enjoy that. And I try to carry that forward because Phyllis has been gracious enough to give me that opportunity, and I try to do her proud. But when you were talking and writing about the little people, the Cherokee little people, were you aware of other species of beings that were similar to that, such as the Atacama skeletons that are such the big
At,
outcry right now?
at the time I started interviewing these witnesses, uh, the little people information was totally new to me. I certainly have done a lot of research since then, and I find out that there's little people all over the world. The Hawaiians have it, the Mayans had it, the The Irish had them. So I've learned a lot. But at the time I started that book or that information, I did not know that much.
Well, I just find it interesting because in the case of the Cherokee Little People, as you said, you have experienced the remains as evidence.
Correct.
And the case with the South American mummy, it said that this is still a group like the Cherokee Little People that still exist in this desert today, and they live underground and come out during the day.
Do you recall the size? Do you recall the size of those?
They are tiny.
Yeah. See, the Cherokee Little People are like the under 3.5 feet, 3.5 feet tall.
Yes,
so
I think these are 12 inches
right.
to
So
2 feet.
They're not the same thing at all. And the ones that I'm talking about that are found in other cultures, again, are in the same size bracket. So what you're talking about is really almost like another species from the Little People.
Okay. Well, I had just wondered that, and I started to pick up the phone and ask you, and I thought, no, I'll just make a note and ask her during the show. But, because I'm always interested.
So much to know.
There's so much. And, you have to dig through the gobbledygook to get to the facts a lot of times. I like that I don't have to do that with your site.
And you can't ever jump to conclusions. Staying with the Little People, I'll give you an example. When they were doing construction all over the campus of Western Carolina University, they would be cutting into soil that they thought was virgin soil, and they would find these little square-cut tunnels throughout the place. And there was also what they called an Indian mound on the campus. And people just said it was an Indian mound. Well, these old-timers said it wasn't an Indian mound. They said they could remember when they were boys, and that this mound had a tubular hole in the going vertically down into the center of it. And the farmer at that point would put big logs down in the hole so the cattle wouldn't fall in it. And they said it wasn't an Indian mound. They said that they found that these tunnels that they kept finding around the campus, many of them led to this pile of dirt. And they said it was just the dirt being removed from making the tunnels.
That's a lot of dirt.
That's a lot of dirt.
Wow.
And there was a lot of tunnels.
Well, what part of the campus was that located on?
They were found all over the campus. When they would put sewer lines in, when they would build new buildings, they would find them. So it looks like at one time there was like a little people city or town or something right where the university is now. And ironically, and I do find this ironic, there are still 2 or 3 existing tunnels that go out from one of the old buildings on the campus. It's called the McKee Building. And they have built a reinforcement wall in the basement, and these tunnels are now behind that reinforcement wall. On the inside of the building, on the other side of this wall, is the anthropology department. And I'm going, this is crazy. Here is the anthropology department. Here is a wall that's separating them from one of the great historical relics from that campus. And it's just bizarre.
That is so bizarre. I can't believe that nobody wants to just trot down there.
Well, what happens, you can't get back there now. But what I find with universities is, and I'll be specific, with Western Carolina University, they don't want to slow down their building project because the campus is expanding. So if you find archaeological things, you have to shut down at least for a while. That is one thing. This kind of information about the Little People, information about the Bigfoot, does not fit into what is traditionally taught in our higher education institutes. So they don't want to publicize it. So that's another reason. And I've read 2 books by, it looks like good research, about how since the 1800s, people were finding these giant skeletons and
Yes.
turning them over to the Smithsonian because they figured that was the smartest place to send them. And they get lost in the vaults and are never revealed again to the public. I think it was last summer. I was at the Dunkin' Donuts in town and overheard a conversation with one of the young people there, and she was in the anthropology department as a student. And I asked her about the giant skeletons that I heard were in the, in their lab there in storage, and about the little Cherokee skull that was found. And she told me that they had all been sent off to the Smithsonian within the last year or two. And I'm going, oh dear, there goes some more interesting evidence down the dark hole of the Smithsonian. And it's very regrettable.
It is regrettable. There's a lot of
I believe
things
those
that have been
giant
told disappeared there.
The giant skeletons they had there, there were two of them, and they had 6 toes. And I've also done 2 stories on people that live in different parts of this area, and they each have found these giant spearheads made of stone on their land, and they look too big and too heavy for any human to be able to use as any kind of a weapon. So that might be a possible indication that there were giants in this area at one time.
Well, one of them is the young woman who is actually clearing several acres to make a garden, right? So she's doing this by hand. And
Right.
there's no telling what she's going to find in the course of time.
That's right. She's the second one. She's in the Nantahala Lake region of western North Carolina, and the other gentleman that was finding him on his land is on the Balsam Ridge. So as the crow flies, I don't know off the top of my head, maybe they're 30 miles apart, but it's 2 distinct finds.
And are these the only indicators of tools or weapons that are that size that have been found in the region that you're aware of?
I'm not aware of any others, but that doesn't mean anything because I haven't really done a lot of searching at this point.
Well, because really it's just come to light.
So I really don't have a good answer for you.
Well, I look forward to that because I know it's going to be interesting. And I know you're going to find answers.
So
But
but see how we depend on people who make contact with us at the website. So many of our stories come that way. That lady contacted me, and then, as I said, Evelyn Gordon and I went out to her property and saw the situation that she lives in and the stones that she had found for ourselves. And that happens. Thank goodness that happens because that's a wonderful way to get stories.
well, it's wonderful that y'all have the reputation of being people that they can bring that to.
Yeah, I don't want to blow my reputation. I got to be good.
Well, you are. And I find that the comfort that people must find in actually having someone to share these experiences with, it kind of has to blow you away that they're reaching out to you with something that they wouldn't share with their family in a lot of cases.
Well, one of the things that Evelyn and I are able to do is so many people feel like they're the only ones having the experiences they're having. So when they start to open up with us, we can assure them we've heard these kind of stories before, or many of them. And, there's a lot of people who have had things happen to them or seen things that they think nobody else or hardly anybody else has experienced. And that's often not the case at all.
That's true. We have to take a little 2-minute break here, and we will be right back. I'm enjoying this conversation, Mary. Thank you. And for y'all listening, 2 minutes, we'll be right back.